Hi, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of I Never Knew But My Dog Did podcast. I am your master life coach, Maureen Scanlon. I am the life coach who helps you recognize and elevate your self confidence for the desired life you want. This podcast is my passion project, it is my heart. And it's really interesting. I just want to throw this out there. I'm on a group on Facebook of podcasters, and someone recently said a question. They said, I had a guest on who was really rude, and it was just it was a terrible interview. What do you guys do when that happens? And I literally sat back and was like, what do you mean? I've never had a guest who's rude or I had to pull teeth to get an answer. That is the beauty of my passion project, is that build it and they will come, and law of attraction, that is like itself, will come. And once again, today, I know you guys know I say this every week. I'm so redundant and I don't care. I take pride in the fact that I bring the best guests and they come and they share and they're just beautiful, beautiful people. And this week is no exception. And the fact that her and I are so aligned in so many ways is just crazy. Just when I think the last guest was super aligned, now I find another one who's also aligned in so many ways. So I am rambling, but I just, because I'm so excited about her and she's got a lot going on and was so generous to say, I'm going to show up today. So let me introduce you all to Julie Marty Pearson. She is also a podcaster, so she understands sort of the pains of podcasting and what all is involved. She is a speaker like myself and a coach like myself. And she helps women share their stories through podcasting as podcast host and guest. She has her doctorate in organizational psychology, and she worked for over 15 years in accreditation, assessment, and institutional research in higher education. After the pandemic in 2020, this is a common theme I hear that I absolutely love as a coach, is people reassessed in 2020. There were sad things that happened, but there were so many breakthroughs of going inside figuratively and literally to find our passions and change our trajectories of our life. And she decided to start her own coaching business, something she had dreamed of since completing her doctorate in 2012. She's now passionate about helping others share their stories through podcasting. And she's a dedicated fur mom, lifelong animal lover, pet enthusiast, and all around animal advocate. In 2022, she started her podcast, The Story of My Pet, and that's about her passion for pets. And the purpose of the podcast has been expanded to be an advocate and educate in all areas of animal welfare, rescue, fostering, and adoption. And you all know how near and dear that is to my heart, and how I end every podcast saying you need to adopt and do not shop. So that's how we are super, super aligned. Take a breath, Maureen, and welcome my beautiful new friend, Julie. Hi, Julie. Good morning, good afternoon. I think it's afternoon now. How are you?
Good morning for me here on the West Coast. Maureen, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you about everything, but especially our mutual love of pets and podcasting. You know, so much of what you were saying as you were talking, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. What I have found through podcasting is people like you who are like me. Like, I had this realization there are so many other women out there like me that I just never met. And podcasting has opened up like a whole new world to me in terms of community. And so I'm so glad we've connected and I'm here now.
I love it. I know we're so honored to have you. And I say the same thing. I always tell my guests, how would we ever meet if this wasn't possible? And technology can be my nemesis as a Gen Xer. It's just, hello, I'm the pager girl. But, I wouldn't meet you in a grocery store. You're on the West Coast. I'm in Austin, Texas. Like, there's no way to meet in the middle, and yet we find one another through, thank you, universe, God, whatever you guys want to believe in. I do believe there are no coincidences, and we cross paths because we need to, and because we are heart centered and aligned in that way. So, here on I Never Knew, what I do is I start off asking you what is your knee story? So your knee story is we've all had moments or one moment in particular, like an epiphany moment where you're on your knees just saying, wow, I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not fulfilled, or this isn't working. I need a new way, or I just have to completely change everything and become a new person. So can you share with us what is a really pertinent knee moment for you in your life?
Oh gosh, that's a very good question. Definitely was an evolution of little moments, but I think one of the big ones for me was so in 2019, September of 2019, I had a hysterectomy. And it took several months for me to kind of recover. It was a struggle. I have autoimmune issues since I was actually a kid. And it was some moment post that as COVID hit and the pandemic hit, and I realized I can't go back to my old world because schools are shut down, literally. And it was that moment of I have this time and space to figure out what do I want my future to look like. And one of the moments during that was I was doing something and it wasn't working. And I was like so frustrated. My husband comes in. He's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Why isn't this working?" And he looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "What?" He goes, "It's not working for a very obvious reason that I was not seeing." And he was like, "I'm kind of concerned. Are you okay?" And it was that moment of realization that between my health issues and not working and the pandemic, I had kind of lost myself and my mind, and I wasn't thinking clearly, and I wasn't being rational. And it was like this kind of epiphany that he had to point out to me that I was not seeing. I've lost myself. I'm not even thinking clearly. Like, what? And so it was that kind of moment of, I was like, okay, well, how do I get back to myself? And I knew it couldn't be my old career in higher ed. I commuted to schools all over California and it wore me out physically and emotionally, on top of the fact I lost my father in 2018. So I think COVID, in so many ways for us, was a pivotal point and change. But it was that moment with him where it was almost like he was literally yelling at me, like, "Wake up. You're in a fog. You're not paying attention. You're not thinking." And so I kind of had to focus and start moving forward and choosing what that was going to look like. So, I have a doctorate. I spent my whole life in higher education as a student, I taught, I was in administrative roles. And so that was kind of my life and what I'd done everything for. But I knew I couldn't keep doing it. The stress of the positions and commuting and all of that was just, I couldn't keep up that. And so it was really a point where I had to decide what were my options, first of all, and what did I want my life to look like. So it was a progression, but I come back to that moment with my husband a lot because it was literally like a wake up call that I needed, and I just didn't even know that I was so not paying attention to things in my own world as well as in the larger world.
Oh yeah. And this is like a pretty common theme with the guests that I talk to is like um sometimes we just do this status quo thing. We go through life and just doing what we think we're expected to do or what we've always
Yep.
done. And then and that's why I say, again, COVID was as sadly as it was that we lost so many people and we missed really special milestone moments. We couldn't all be together, but I think it was necessary. And I think there's been moments in humanity that it's been like that, where it's like, you have to stop, guys. Just stop. And you wouldn't
Right.
stop any other way. If stores weren't shut down, schools weren't shut down, if everything wasn't shut down, none of us
Right.
would have. And maybe a handful of us in our lives were like, okay, I've got to stop and regroup. But let's be honest, the majority of us are like, hustle, hustle, hustle. Let's just keep going with an odd.
Especially women.
Yes, right? Because that's how we are sort of
Programmed.
I was gonna say program. I was gonna try to turn it in a different way, but that's very true because the examples we were given and also just the ancestral lines of this is what women do. You stay busy, you take care of the kids, you work, you do this, you do this.
Mhm.
Men generally are just required to support the family and they get to relax and have R&R when they want. But
Right.
I think it's beautiful. And the thing that I love about you, and this is so interesting to me. So I started my life in a different trajectory. So I started off getting married very, very young, having kids very young. So education was not an option for me. We lived overseas, we were in the military, moving around. So there wasn't a whole lot of option for me to do that. I started taking social work courses and I just couldn't with kids. And so here, after working in corporate in the medical field for almost 30 years, I luckily, not luckily, manifested my husband, who now gives me the freedom to be able to pursue this dream. Where you and so many other of my guests were like, I was in this high powered, I had one recently, she was like a celebrity talent agent. I had one who was a high powered attorney in Miami during the cocaine era. Here you
Oh,
are with your doctorate. See, and yet we're all here, we all are as coaches. And it doesn't matter. And please do not be offended because it matters that you got education. Do not get me wrong. That I was going to preface that. But what's cool is the commonality that we all have is we lived a life. We lived a life
right.
of struggle, resilience, overcoming, and we all kind of ended up at the same place, yet bringing different experiences for our different clients who need what we have to give. And I think that's just super brilliant. Um,
I
I,
love that. I do want to say, because you said that, I do not take offense to that in any way. And it's actually funny because as I started my coaching business, but then got into podcasting, I don't lead with, "Hi, I'm Dr. Julie." That's never been who I am. Obviously, those letters and titles were very important in my other career. But I always joke, I don't have a doctorate in podcasting. I have a doctorate in psychology. Of course, I'm a huge proponent for education, and especially for women, get yourself educated so you have the power to have a career, to have your own money, all of that. I was the first in my family to do a lot. My dad never went to college. He was a salesman, he was a furniture salesman. We had our own furniture store at one point. My mom took classes at the community college when she was raising us and ended up getting her associate's degree. So I do not come from a really highly educated, family. So I appreciate that. And my husband is also never went to college. He's a carpenter. So I always tell people that because I value education. It was very important to me. I was a good student. I loved school, all of those things, but it's not for everyone. Everyone has their own path. Sometimes it comes later in life, sometimes we do it up front, but education is also important because it's the power of knowing and learning about history and other cultures and other religions and all those things that we need more than ever in this world.
yes, yes.
But what I have found, like you've said, especially for women, we've all kind of ended up in this space for very different reasons, but also for similar reasons, right?
Oh,
Giving
absolutely.
ourselves permission to make our life what we want it to be and how we can help other women to do that too. And it's just the last few years have opened my eyes and world up in so many ways that even though I got to kind of do a lot in my old career, it's very different, but also very the same. But meeting people I would have never met without doing podcasting for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And the reach that we have, that's so different than just in a classroom, you know what I mean? Like now we have this worldwide reach. And I like to say I have my doctorate in the School of Hard Knocks. And the thing is I knew I wanted to be a mom. That was my goal. Put the letters behind my name, MOM, because I wanted to be a mom. Now looking back at why I became a mom when I did was because I was to do it on my own. The marriage definitely was not what it should be. The co-parenting was not what it should be. So I'm grateful that that was my priority. And then when I got to do coaching, like you, I am so fascinated with psychology. I got my modern applied psychology diploma. Like I'm a sponge for learning now. Had I been, and I think I like to do labels. I try not to, but just my tendency to not be attentive, ADHD, sitting in a classroom, I don't think would have worked for me. And I think it had to go the way that it did for me to be where I am because now, oh my gosh, the certifications I have in all the areas I wanted, animal psychology, child psychology, criminal psychology, all those fun things that I really wanted to do, I couldn't have I couldn't have sat in a classroom doing algebra and English. It's just it isn't who I am.
Yeah,
I'm that it has to be fun or I'm not going to do it person. But
right.
my story with the animals, the reason that I wrote the books was because it was that moment like you, it wasn't during the pandemic. It was also 2019 where I was in a really bad place. I was coming out of another narcissistic, terrible relationship, and I'm finally 45 years old going, "Oh gosh, this sucks, Maureen. You don't know what you're doing. You're not worthy, and what is your problem? You're the common thing in all these bad relationships." And my dogs are sitting there as I'm just feeling terrible about myself and just giving me that look of love. And you know how animals just look at you like you're just the
Hmm.
world. You are the universe, the moon, the sun, and the stars. And that was for me, just that love that they gave me that said, oh my gosh, that's what I don't have. That's what I don't have for myself. Thank you guys for giving that to me. And so that was my epiphany knee moment where it was like, I started observing them and I started going, how do I live this life? How do I make it more simple? How do I change things? That's where the books came from. I just started jotting down, oh, they went out into the backyard and they were just protecting each other, or they went to the dog park and they were, having a good time. Those are the moments that for me started everything where I realized how precious and close to spirit that animals are. What was your sort of moment of like the dogs are the ones that I need to use to share the message that I share?
Well, I've always felt that ever since I was a little girl. I was the girl that wanted to play with the puppy, not the babies. So I've always had that. I always joke when I was 5, I wanted to be two things, a veterinarian or an accountant. And those are definitely the two sides of my personality, for sure. I'm a good student. I like numbers, teaching, all that, but animals have my heart. And from my psychology background, I know that animals can teach us a lot. They don't have a lot of the stereotypes and preconceived things that we all have in our world. And sometimes if we simplify and like connect with them, they help us to kind of connect even with ourselves better. But I think for me, it was in 2021, I had taken a class about podcasting. And, I do all the things, I was getting it all set up. And at the time, I was doing career coaching. And so that's my business. My podcast should be about my business, right? That's what you do. And 6 months later, there was no podcast. Nothing ever happened because it didn't excite me. I wasn't passionate about it. I didn't want to get up every day and talk about career coaching. And so I don't know what the moment was that I decided, well, maybe I should just try it out for fun and talk about something I could talk about for hours any moment of the day, and that's pets. And so I started by getting on Zoom with my lifelong friend who we literally grew up. We're 2 months apart in age. We grew up 3 houses away. We got on Zoom and talked about our pets. We talked about her childhood pets, mine, because we have all these stories back and forth. And it was this crazy hour and a half chaos, her dogs barking, getting interrupted by her kids. But then it was like, that was so much fun. That was great. So it was the moment of trying something completely different than I'd ever done, not even tied to the business I was trying to build. And so I decided to do it a couple more times. I put it out. I didn't edit. I didn't do anything. I just put it out into the world, into the universe. and people started listening. People started reaching out and wanted to be on the podcast. So it was this moment of me tapping into something that's been a love of mine since I was little and doing something for the pure enjoyment and joy of it. And like you said earlier, so that podcast is my passion project. I don't make money off of it in really in any way. It actually costs me to keep it going. But I've realized it's an important platform to help other people who have that passion for pets, who want to help animals, who want other people to realize the ways they can help animals. So it really was kind of me tapping into that little girl and allowing myself to show up as me and, pink walls and all the amazing pictures and just talk about what I love, which are pets. And it opened this door to just a whole new world for me in terms of learning more about animals, learning more about animal rescue. I thought I was an animal advocate, but I only really knew a little. So it was just kind of this evolution of me just kind of stripping down, tapping into little Julie and using that love and pure passion to create something new for myself and for others.
Yes, yes. And from a coaching standpoint, listeners, I'm just going to say this. Do you see how different it is when you follow the joy? We always have been taught, go do this thing that'll make you money, or go do this thing that gives you status or success. You know what? Throw that all away, everybody. Pardon my French, but screw that shit. Because you know what? Everyone's going to sense how real you are about what you are doing. We call it ikigai, which is what are you good at? What are you passionate about? What can you make money at? Her and I do not make money at podcasting. If we're fortunate, we might, get a sponsor or something, but that's usually not that takes a lot of work and a lot of help and a lot of marketing, and I just don't have the bandwidth for all of that. So I
Right.
don't mind because I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about the starfish story, that it mattered to that one, and if I touch one listener every single
Yes.
podcast, I've done my job. I've done my light working work for that day. And I
Yeah.
love that you said it wasn't fun, and then when it was fun, it became successful. Isn't that true for
Yes.
coaching? So when you coach
Absolutely.
people, is that something, especially when you were career coaching or now just even, especially women, we tend to put everything that we want to the side and do the have tos instead of the want tos. What are some of the things coaching wise you would say to women that come to you who are like, I don't know what to do. I want to find my purpose.
Right. Well, I think the power and the connection that I've found and made through podcasting is what made me switch my coaching away from career coaching into podcast coaching, which is in a lot of different ways, but it's helping women to realize that we all have stories and that there's power in us telling those, not only for other people who we might help or touch. Like you said, you may help one person feel less alone or going through something, but I've also found that podcasting storytelling is healing. I talk a lot about that on my pet podcast because a lot of us talk about pets we've lost. So I've found that storytelling and podcasting is very healing for grief. But it's also just healing for, kind of letting go of things and being able to move forward. So when I work with women as a coach, whether it's helping them to be an awesome guest or launch their own podcast or whatever in between there is, I really do focus on that passion part because I always say, I say it in my bio sometimes, I started a podcast about my passion and that's how I've gotten to where I am now. Like, I know if I had pushed myself to be the good student and do what I'm supposed to, like I always did, and just did a career coaching podcast, it probably wouldn't have lasted. It wouldn't have been authentic, all of those things. But I've also learned from all the women I've met through podcasting who have their own, there is some element of that passion for them. There's a reason that they've started it about what they have, whether it be my friend Amy who has a podcast about sustainability, a friend who had a podcast about being a widow, and another who's starting one about crafting. I mean, that's what I love about podcasting. You can literally do it about anything. You have the power. And so I really focus on that with my clients. no one is making you do a podcast. You want to do it, sometimes tied to your business or not, but it's up to you what it looks like. How often do you do episodes? How long are the episodes? Are they live? Are they recorded? There's so many options, but that's the power of podcasting is you get to tap into what you want to do. Some people love the live streaming and the interaction. Other people love the recording and being able to edit a lot. you know, Whatever that is. So that's really what I try to tap into with my clients and also create space for them to feel safe
Mhm.
and be able to try something new without being afraid of being judged. So that's actually why I created a women's community for podcasters and guests so that we have a space to just network and come together and all of that. I call that the Women's Podcaster Party. And really, I love my larger podcasting communities. Nothing wrong with male podcasters, but women, we talk about different things on our podcasts and we connect a lot about our journeys, but we also talk about things differently than men do. So I've just created a space for us all to kind of connect and learn from each other. And I think that's a really important thing to have for us, no matter what you're using your story for.
Mhm.
Whether you're writing it in a book like you've done, or you're blogging, or whatever else. I really try to focus on that safe space for women, but also the encouragement and sometimes the little push to share your story. I too have had to push myself. I've had to learn how to show my emotions more. As a teacher, it's facts, you're learning. But as a podcaster and a storyteller, it is more about me. It is more about my experiences and being really raw and vulnerable. And so that is also what I try to help my clients with too.
Oh, that's it. I could not. In fact, as you were saying that, I was thinking it's a vulnerability journey. And is that a Facebook group, Women's Podcaster Party? Is it a Facebook group or is it
Yes, I do have a Facebook group for it, Women's Podcaster Party. And I am looking at through just talking to more and more women. A lot of women have this sense of I want to do this, whether it's guest or host or whatever, but they've never done it before. So I've thought about kind of opening up a new level of that community where there would be space for people to practice. Practice
mm,
your story, practice being interviewed, practice being the interviewer. Interviewing skills is something I've always had to do in my life. So it doesn't scare me. I actually, probably like you, feed off of it and get energy. But other people, it seems really scary. They feel like they have to know exactly what to say and ask. So my evolution over the last couple of months is realizing not as many women are ready to launch a podcast. They're trying to just learn how to share their story and how to be prepared and how to talk to others about themselves and their business.
very, very true. And I will be joining that group. So you make sure you approve my request to join.
Absolutely. And I will send you the link so that anyone listening can sign up. Even if you've never been a guest or had a podcast or anything before, you are welcome. I'm also trying to create it as a space for people to just learn more about podcasting and how they might be able to tap into it.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect. I'll put that all in the show notes as well. And I'm going to say this. So technology, I've never been a very strong technology person. It's just I'm one of these get in the car, the key better turn because if it doesn't, then I'm just going to lose my mind. Kind of the same way with technology. When I get on to record, I'm like, please let my mic work. Please let their mic work. Please let the headphones work. It's sort of the stressful part of podcasting. And I'm going to say this for my millennials. I mean, for my Gen Xers, sorry. Millennials, you're more equipped. Gen Z, you are more equipped with the technology. But the older women who do have stories to tell, we'll
Mhm.
say, 45 and overs, it's a challenge. And I remember that was the thing that stopped me. The longest, the main reason was that it wasn't about being nervous or not being able to talk. It was, can I do this without looking like such an amateur? And now I don't care. I'm kind of the in between live and editing. All I do is add my intro, my outro. I don't edit anything out. I don't care if people cuss. I don't care if there's dogs barking in the background. In fact, I hope there are because it's part of the
Right.
authenticity of it. But I'm going to say this, listeners, and Julie, this you'll love this. I wanted to start it, wanted to start it, wanted to start it, and I know you hear women. And one day I was just working, I make these little mini houses. I'll show you an example. My little office. It's a mini house.
Oh my God. I want that office. I love pink. So that is like,
It's my signature color for my coaching. It's got my books in there. But I
oh,
was real I
and I
was
see an Eiffel Tower too. Oh my God. We are the same person.
I know it's even got lights. I don't know if the lights will turn on, but yeah, I mean everything in it is
Oh
like just
gosh.
it was me, and I really loved it. It was very therapeutic. I need as a, focus struggle person. I need to hyper focus on things. Show me.
I just have to share. This is my cat Charlie as a kitten hanging onto one of my mini Eiffel Towers.
Oh my God. See, told you, I told you. So I was sitting there one day making this mini house, and I literally had this voice say, "Start it
Is that me
now."
or you? Oh no.
Oh, good. We're good. All right.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm back. Can you hear me?
I can. I can. Here we go. There we
Okay.
go.
Woo.
Again, check
Speaking
now.
of technology,
I know it's almost like I just manifested that, but I needed I was just working on my thing and I hear this literally I just hear this voice say start it now. And I'm literally looking around like what? Wait, what? Start the podcast. And I did. And I've done a lot of things in my life like that when I've just been sort of pushed or just told like jump off that cliff, Maureen. So I did. I started it that day. I, like you, took a course from a wonderful, wonderful lady who had a trivia. It was really fun. She had a
oh,
trivia podcast, and I mean, it had like over 1 million downloads, and she was very, very successful. And the couple of things that I would give advice to people on is consistency. That's been the biggest success for me. Everybody knows it comes out on Wednesday every single week. I don't change it. Sometimes I'll do a bonus one, but consistency is key. People want to know that they can count on you and when to count on you. And technology, get good recording um, software. Not necessarily, you don't have to have the highest dollar microphone or headphones
mm-mm.
or whatever. Mine is not even high dollar and it works fantastic. So don't listen to everybody with this. I got all that soundproofing stuff. You don't need any of that stuff. Lighting. I don't have any of that. I literally have a window in front of me and like a $40 microphone. But the consistency and the good software was really important. The vulnerability part of that that I love you mentioned is just like when I wrote my book and handed it off, the first one, it was like handing off my newborn. Be ready to receive negative people or
Yeah,
people who have comments about stuff. And just like anything in life, you can listen to it or you can just dismiss it. I choose to dismiss, but now the community is so positive. I never get anything negative, but just be prepared, have a little bit thicker skin. Do you agree with those tips, Julie?
absolutely. I will say first, kind of the shorter ones, consistency, yes, and that is actually something I am worst at. I don't I know it's important and it helps people grow, but life is lifing and we have to, follow with what we need to do. I've taken breaks for both of mine and people still listen when I come back. People still listen while I'm away. So, consistency is really important, especially when you're launching. But I also tell people don't put pressure on yourself. It's okay if you miss a week, it's okay if you have to take a break, right?
Mhm.
Because the people who need to hear it will be there when you come back. So I will say that, but it is key to really seeing growth and momentum with your podcast, especially in that first year. Tech, absolutely. I think that hinders a lot of us. I am a Gen Xer. I am 47. And so I'm on that kind of cusp where I get it a little more, but I used a lot of technology systems in my other career.
Mhm.
So I tell people basic, get a Samsung 50, $60 mic, get, a ring light if you want one. And I use basic things and I never share things I haven't used because I'm not going to tell you to go pay for something if I don't know that it how it works or that it will be a benefit. So I start very basic with my clients who want to launch and say, this is your starting point. All of it can grow and evolve as you go. Vulnerability is big because for me, the interview episodes are easy. It's the solo episodes that are hard for me. Whether it's sharing my story or teaching or talking about a topic, I feel more isolated. I'm alone with myself on the screen. That is definitely harder, and that's been a work in progress for me. Um, but yes, the starting. I have a friend who was in a podcast class with me years ago who still has not launched. And we're always checking in with her. Well, come on, just do it. And I think we women especially think it has to all be set up perfectly and all the boxes have to be checked. No, it doesn't. I started back when, gosh, I can't even think was it Anchor? Was that used to be what Spotify was? Anyway, I started with a free host and a different mic and had been taught how to edit audio. That was it. And I didn't even edit the first 5 or 6 episodes. Sometimes you have to try it to see if you even like it. Does it even feel good? Do you like it? Do you feel like this is something you want to do? Why put all that time and effort in and you do it and you realize, I don't even like doing this, right? So I always say start messy, but a lot of that is vulnerability and how you open yourself up. That is definitely the difficult part of podcasting. And that's also, managing how much you look at comments and things on social media. But it is really like giving yourself permission to try, and it's okay if it doesn't work out. I think so many of us, myself included, are so afraid of failure. And I've worked on that a lot in my business. I put out a new offer or offer a new class or a new program and nobody signs up. That has been hard because I've always been successful. I'm an A student. So failing has been another piece of that vulnerability for me. But then I realized is with podcasting, the great thing is you don't know if you're failing. If people are listening and they're connecting with you, you don't necessarily find that out, but you just know you're putting it out there for whoever's meant to hear it. And the pet podcast for me really opened that door of new things in a way. I started volunteering at my shelter. I fostered kittens. I even worked at the shelter for a while, helping with their dog adoption event. I did all these things that I could have easily been doing before, but it wasn't until I connected with people one on one in my interviews that I started seeing how I can help in ways that I had never stepped out of my comfort zone and just walked into the shelter and volunteered before. So the vulnerability kind of goes both ways, right? You
Yeah.
want to be open to the opportunities, but you also have to put yourself out there for that to happen. So that is definitely hard for a lot of us women, especially those of us over 45 and 50, where we weren't really encouraged to share our emotions and all of that. We were told, do your job, and that's all you need to worry about.
Yeah, yeah. Or in a lot of our cases, you weren't allowed to talk about that. You were supposed to like keep everything private, and that was tough, writing the book and telling my story, and then coming on and talking about stuff. And I respect the people who don't want me to share, information, but it's also my story, and I'm allowed to
Right.
tell it. And don't measure your success by downloads either, people, because I had
Oh
so
God,
many
please.
people saying, I listen to your podcast all the time. I listen, and I'm like, how come my downloads don't show that? Well,
Right.
also, I think it's very crucial, and I want to get into the dog stuff before we end, but to YouTube, you're not going to get paid from YouTube, but the YouTube is going to be a great way for people to really connect with you by seeing you physically. Hearing a
Right.
voice is one thing, but think
Hmm.
about it when you read a book, you can't really feel the energy of the author. But if you go to a book signing, all of a sudden you meet the author. So I think YouTube is very, very important, and you can use it a lot for marketing. You can use little snippets. You can use
Right.
programs that take just a
What
little
I what
time.
I often tell women, because a lot of times when they are thinking about a podcast, do I have to do audio only? Should I do video? And one of the great things is YouTube makes it very easy for you to put your podcast on, even if you don't use your video. One, they're very podcast friendly. Two is what I've found is some of it is personality, but it is a lot of it generations. The younger generations like video. Gen Xers and above like the audio. And there is a good connection you can build. When you think about it, they have earbuds in and it's just you and them. Like you are building a connection. But
Yeah.
some people do like that visual. They want to see you. They want to get a visual representation. Some of that is just learning style. I'm a visual person. So I always tell people if it doesn't take more time, then you should do it. Like just click that button and it's going to get put there, right? But something you mentioned I forgot to say before we get into pets more. You talked about feedback.
Mhm.
That is very hard. Not just the failure and wondering why did that not work, but when you do get feedback and it maybe isn't what you expect or or thinking would be. I remember when I was in my master's program and I did my defense for my master's thesis and everybody was there and yay. And then after one of my mentors handed me my actual physical thesis and said, "Here's some more edits." And I was like, "I just defended it and I got another version with red all over it." And I carry that experience with me in a lot of ways that it's okay. I just did that, responded, and it was done. In the moment, it was very overwhelming to think, I thought I just finished. Sometimes we have to realize that the feedback can just be the part of the process and we just have to move through it. But we also have to be open because what I found with coaching, I thought everybody wanted to launch a podcast. And then I've been doing all this networking and growing, and I realized about 75% of women I meet are asking about guesting, not launching. So I've shifted and I've talked more about that now. And so we have to be open to feedback, but we also have to be open to hearing what people want, what stories they want, what topics they want, what offers or classes, whatever that is. And that's been a learning process for me too. But it's really important to just be open because you want to help them with what they actually need help with, not what
Oh,
you think they need help with.
well said, well said. And everybody that knows me and all the listeners that listen all the time know I am not salesy. I do not like marketing. I do not like promoting myself. But that's part of it. You have to. You have to really kind of at least share it. At least, I mean, every week I'll put it on Facebook, I'll put it on Instagram, and I'll put it on LinkedIn. And man, the feedback is fantastic. But also remember, and I'm going to do this from a coaching standpoint for self-confidence purposes for people out there, is when people come back with non-constructive comments, it's about them. Okay.
Yes.
And from a coaching standpoint, this is what I tell all of my coaching clients is, when people say nasty things or things that are really cutting and hurting to you, first of all, why does it hurt you? Because then we have to work on whatever self-esteem issues, why it's getting to you. And B, a lot of times it's just about them. Either they're jealous about it or, whatever. So we have to always make sure we have a good, um, you know, um,
We
perspective
can't
on
let
it.
people put their trauma on us.
Right. We have to
We
be
got enough of
objective.
our own.
Right? Got to be objective. So, speaking of trauma with our animals, let's talk about what we can do to help animals. Like, a lot of people are like, I can't foster. Like, I've got a cat and two dogs, and I cannot foster. I don't know that they would all get along. What are some things besides fostering that we can do to help animals? And um, are there things other than cats and dogs? Is there a turtle shelter I can go work at? So, can you share some of the things that you've discovered, how this opened doors for you on how you can help animals?
Absolutely. First, yes, pretty much any animal or breed of dog or cat you can think of, there's a rescue for it. I was speaking to someone recently, they're like, "Oh, we really wanted this type of dog and we already have a breeder." And I was like, "Oh, no."
Mhm.
And I said, so I didn't get mean or, I try not to be aggressive or I've had to learn that too. I said to her, I go, "That's great. Well, you said you might get another one down the road. Well, there are breed specific rescues. There are golden retriever rescues. There are golden doodle rescues. There are dachshund rescues." So that is one thing I say. If you think you want a certain cat or dog, research because there more than likely is a rescue out there for that breed or similar, then you're saving a life and not supporting a breeder. So that's one big one that I like to, that's an easy one for me to tell people who talk about getting a new dog. One thing is there are rescues and opportunities for all types of animals. I've had people on. There are sanctuaries for farm animals. There are sanctuaries for cats. There's so many different options. So whatever animal is important to you or you've connected with, there's a horse rescue near where I live, and they do amazing things for horses and donkeys and all of that. So there is one. Just look, search social media, you're going to find it, or look at your local community. And I understand, I never shame people. I would love to adopt any number of more animals, but my husband is the one that says, no, we cannot afford that. He keeps me in check. Otherwise, I'd be in a house with probably 100 different animals. So not everyone can adopt. Not everyone has time or space to foster. Volunteering is huge. And volunteering can come in a lot of shapes and sizes. Yes, that can be going to your local shelter and cleaning out cat cages for the day, or walking the dogs to get them out of their kennels, because dogs in shelters often don't get walked. They don't have enough staff for things like that. So there's simple things like that you can do in your shelters with your rescues, but a lot of organizations also need administrative help. I just connected with one to see if I could help, where I can, in between my other work, I can be answering emails, updating their website, writing blog posts. What are ways that you can use what you're good at or have time for that you can do to help them? Because trust me, every rescue, every nonprofit, every shelter needs help. They don't have enough funding. They don't have enough staff. It's not getting better. The overpopulation crisis is only getting worse. I live in California, which is one of the worst states in the country for that. And so I try to focus on what I can do to help. You can also donate money, of course. You can donate supplies. A lot of rescues and shelters would love your old towels and blankets and newspapers. They use all of these things at their facilities or with their fosters. So there are a lot of different ways that you can help. Now, if you're just getting into the world and wanting to help, the first step would be social media. Where do you hang out a lot? Search and follow rescues and shelters and nonprofits. You don't understand the power of likes, comments, shares, and reposts. That is how they get in the algorithm and get more people on their content. I know several people who are incredible volunteers at my local shelter, and I constantly repost all their stuff. Dogs have been saved from euthanasia because someone on social media saw the dog, connected, and went and adopted them. We've had people come from out of town, out of state because of social media. So that's an easy first step. And it may not seem like a lot, but trust me, every time I repost something, an organization responds, thank you so much for sharing, whether it's a fundraiser or an event or a spay and neuter clinic. All of that is a really easy way to help. And then sometimes if you start there, you'll get to know a rescue that you really want to do something else for, whether it's your time or your money or, something else. So I always say start small and, see what works for you, what you enjoy, who you connect with. There are rescues out there I've connected with and I just love them. And so I'm going to support them more, the other ones that I don't have a personal connection with. So I try to really get people to realize there are a lot of ways to help, and they appreciate all of it. Any amount of time or effort you are giving them is giving them more time and effort to work on other things they need to do.
I love that. I love that. You just gave me so many ideas, like my juices are going. Here in Austin, we have a couple of them. Well, we have one that's called Paws, which I live in a suburb of Austin called Pflugerville. And Pflugerville Animal Welfare, it's all those that are local to ours, but the one that I love is Austin Pets Alive, and they have thrift stores around.
Yes.
And ironically, I want to talk to your friend Amy about sustainability and be on her podcast because I have a resale business.
Okay.
Because I am determined to save the earth for my children and grandchildren. Textiles, 90% of what's in our landfill. So
Oh, yes. I've
it,
seen documentaries about that. It's heartbreaking when you realize what's
yes.
going on and how we contribute to it.
That's why I do the resale among all the other stuff that I do. And so Austin Pets Alive is fantastic. So I no longer give to the other, supposed places that take donations and don't make a profit, but they do. So GW would
Yeah,
be.
I think there's a I've seen some humane societies that have thrift stores too. So it's a great place to, donate your old clothes instead of maybe Goodwill, because then the profits are going to help animals.
Yep.
There's so many ways, but I say, also do your research.
Hmm.
Ask people, because unfortunately, just like everywhere, there are bad people at animal rescue. There are people that raise money and it's not really helping animals. There are bad in every world, and that's something I've kind of learned as I've done the podcast and getting to know more people, that they struggle with the infighting between rescues about, you raised that, how did you use it? And on social media it's ridiculous. People come after them. It's like, what are you doing to help animals except sit
Ah,
here and yell at them, you know? So definitely do your research. There are rescues that are better. If you don't know, go to my podcast. Every episode has at least one rescue linked. That's actually what I asked my guests on their guest form. What is one rescue you love and support? Please link it here, and I put it in the show notes because that's my way of just giving more visibility. So if you're not sure, start there, and then kind of just, trust me, once your algorithm sees you like animals, they'll start feeding it to you.
yes, I love it. I love it. Any of my Texans, my Central Texans, Austin Pets Alive. That's my absolute favorite. There's also Dogs Around Austin, and there's also Paws. So look into those. But yeah, I
There
definitely.
is one quick thing I do want to say around that very quickly. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but one thing I want people to understand is when you hear no kill. I think there's a stereotype around that. I've had many people say to me, "Well, what shelter is a no kill? Because I want to adopt from them." And that's great. I'm not saying anything against rescues and shelters that can be no kill, but that's not everyone. And oftentimes, I have two shelters where I live. One is city, one is county. They both, unfortunately, have to euthanize because they are run by different types of governments. They are only legally allowed to have so many animals on site at a time. So when they get above that number, something has to happen. If they don't have fosters, if they aren't being adopted, they have to euthanize. Obviously, they do first behavior issues, medical cases, but they will literally euthanize for space. And it's heartbreaking. It broke my heart every day. When I worked at the shelter, I saw the email every day of the list, and it's why I couldn't do it. I couldn't handle it. So people who work in shelters, please do not be mean to them. They are literal heroes and angels, and they work their asses off to save those animals. So I just
Mhm.
want to say that. So if you have a local shelter that doesn't say it's no kill, go to them first. Because if you adopt from them, you are literally making space for another animal to be saved. And that is part of the education I realized people don't get. They've heard words that they think mean something, and it actually isn't what they think it means. And the shelter staff have no control over that. They are employees following the rules of whatever place they work at. So please understand that, and please educate yourself, because that is an important thing to understand. No matter what, every shelter is trying to save the animals, some more than others, but a lot of the governmental issues affect how they do that and what it looks like.
Wow, I'm so glad that you said that. And I would say priority wise, if you want to save an animal, go to the shelters first, then the rescues, from and go from there. But yeah, if we could stay away from breeders, there's just no reason to be breeding, and let the breeders be mad at me. I don't care. But there's no
Yeah.
reason. There's no
There's
reason.
no reason. There are literally millions of dogs and cats are euthanized every year in our country because of breeding and because people think, well, I'll just breed once and I'll make some money. No,
No,
you're not going to
no.
make any money right now, especially. No one can afford things.
Thank
And
you.
those
Thank
are
you.
often, and that's why people say, well, I want a purebred. Go to a shelter. Trust me, they're there. I saw we have so many huskies where I live, which should not be here because it's too hot for them.
Mhm.
So don't think shelters are only bad dogs, behavior issues. No, there are animals there that have been dumped on the street. There are litters of puppies that have been dumped by breeders who can't sell them, or they're sick and they can't pay for it. I've seen so many different types of pure breeds in shelters. So I just tell people, go to the website, look at the photos, go in the shelter, see the dogs. They literally get new dogs and cats every single day. So look around because you may see what you're looking for, or you may realize there's somebody else that you're going to make that connection. You know what I'm talking about with an animal that's like, you are meant to be with me. And that's just a little way you can help or encourage other people to do the same.
Oh, love it, love it. I could talk to you for hours. I have to wrap us up here. What is the website where they can contact you for either podcast coaching or anything involving the animals?
So you can go to my website, juliemartypearson.com, and that is where my coaching and my community and my podcast about podcasting is. And for my pets, you can go to the storyofmypetpodcast.com. That is my podcast blog and other info. You can sign up for the email list, all the things. And I appreciate anyone who wants to listen and share. The more people that hear it, the more people that will learn and help animals in some way.
Well, I have a very generous listening audience out here, and we're growing. Our community is growing. So I definitely know that there's going to be a lot of traffic sent your way because we are all fellow furry animal lovers. Thank you for being here today. I just adore you. I love that, we're partners in this and in this change that we're making in the world, both with helping people tell their story and tell animal stories as well. So thank you for being here today. Hang in with me, Miss Julie.
Thank you so much. I've loved talking with you, getting to know you, and I can't wait to have you on my podcasts.
Yay! Yay! We'll definitely have to share that. Listeners, thank you so much once again for being here. Don't forget the story of my pet podcast is Julie's podcast. So go over there and subscribe and leave those 5-star reviews as well. And if you want to start a podcast, head on over and check it out with her at juliemartypearson.com. I'll have those links for y'all in the show notes. In the meantime, if you need any dating, relationship coaching, it's my specialty, and as well as self-esteem, self-worth coaching, I am at lifecoachmaureen.com, and my books are there as well. My dog is more enlightened than I am, sort of showing you the way the dogs live. You can live the same way, live uninhibited, and don't be an overthinker. Live with joy, do things with joy first. And my dog is my relationship coach, really helps with showing you the importance of relationships, whether it be family or romantic or friendships, any relationship. It'll show you those examples of how dogs can also help in that area. And my children's book, My Dog Bexley is Just Like Me, teach your little 0 to 6 year old babies how to be mindful and take care of themselves, and self-care is good. So don't forget lifecoachmaureen.com. And in addition to that, I don't think Julie even knows this, I have a doggy boutique where, in fact, I was baking just before I hopped on our podcast. I make healthy treats for dogs, no preservatives, no sawdust, which I don't know if y'all know, that's in a lot of your store-bought corporate company treats and preservatives, all of that. Yes, mine do not last a very long time because there's no preservatives, and we don't want that in there for our puppies. So we do 3 weeks in the fridge, 3 months in the freezer. They're actually good frozen. Dogs like that when it's hot out. So healthy treats, paw bombs for their little noses and toeses. I have tons of apparel and just really fun things. We say healthy treats and gifts for your canine friends that they deserve. So that's it. MyDogIsEverything.net, and I will ship that out to y'all here in Austin. Do look for us. We do monthly pop-up shops for our business, our doggy business. Mostly we do Hutto, we do Georgetown, we do Round Rock, and it's just really fun. Come out and say hi. Your dogs, of course, are welcome, and they all get free treats when they come to see us because I never turn a puppy away. I love you all. Thank you for being here. Leave those reviews, leave those comments, and show suggestions. If you want to be a guest, please reach out to me. I welcome everything, all things. Please take care of yourself, take care of one another, and most of all, take care of those furry babies. As Julie said, let's go ahead and make sure that we adopt and do not shop. Start first at those shelters because there's so many babies waiting for a forever home. And you all know I say this, and Julie shadowed or copied exactly what I always say, which is they're going to find you. It's not about you finding them when your puppy passes. They're going to leave room for another baby who needs to be loved. It's why they don't have to live as long as we do. So, on that note, I love you all. Until next week, take care. Mwah.